Why is the marketing and sales activity in your MSP not working as well as it has in previous years? We're going to dig into that right now. Hey, it's Jason Parkinson from ONEFIRE. When it comes to selling and marketing your MSP, there's many different factors that need to be considered. And what I've heard over the last year is that, Jason, our marketing just isn't working like it used to. And so let me share a little bit around the reasoning for that. First of all, the MSP landscape has changed. If you look at how things were 20 years ago, companies were predominantly working with internal IT resources or outside computer companies in more of a break-fix engagement, right? Monthly recurring agreements with a managed services provider was still a pretty novel idea. If you fast forward to just 10 years ago, companies are embracing the outsourcing of their IT needs to an MSP for cost savings, scalability, and internal efficiencies, and most of those break-fix companies have made the transition into the managed model. But today, companies who can benefit from an MSP are already in a long-term contract with one and may not want the friction of switching. Most markets that we see are saturated with MSPs that have very little differentiation. But the first thing we have to recognize here is that the old way of doing things just no longer works. That old playbook is broken. Cold calls are annoying and rarely answered or returned. Creating content for your website and waiting for people to show up doesn't produce enough leads. Social posts are often tuned out and ignored, completely controlled by the algorithm. And spending money on paid ad strategies, it just doesn't drive enough conversions to justify the investment that's needed there. But it's more than just the tactics that don't work as effectively anymore. The entire way that people live and work has changed. And this shift was happening long before COVID upended things. 20 years ago, we had a 9-to-5 workday. Work was happening inside of a closed office space. Fast internet to homes and businesses was just starting to become available. Fast forward to 10 years ago, it was more of an 8-to-6 plus workday. Work is happening in open concept offices. Internet now is available on your phone and people are always connected. But today, people are working whenever they want. They're working remotely from anywhere and everything is in the cloud. And finally, people are buying differently now than they ever have before. If you think about it, 20 years ago, you had a relatively uninformed buyer, and that buyer's journey was driven by the salesperson. And that sales and marketing playbook was all about interrupting with cold calls and advertising. But 10 years ago, you had a more well-informed buyer. They were already knowing what they were looking for, and they started their journey with Google. And that sales and marketing playbook adapted to attraction, putting out website content, spending time on SEO, and even thinking about social selling. But today, you have what we call a misinformed buyer. They've already heard of an MSP or an outsourced IT operation. Maybe they've worked with one in the past, and they already have perceptions on what it's like to work with an outsourced IT company. And so that means that you don't just have to inform them, you also have to overcome those perceptions. And the buyer's journey now is fluid. Sometimes it is driven by the salesperson. Sometimes it does start with Google. But it's all about people responding to the value that they're receiving. And that means that the sales and marketing playbook has to adapt also. It's all about showing up at the time of need, being authentic, and building a human connection. So as you're thinking about what you're doing in your MSP, it's time to have a conversation about how you evolve with the times so that you can make next year look a lot different than this past year. I'll talk to you soon.